Good afternoon, comrades, friends, our media friends that joined us today. We welcome you into Voices Hotel. It's a conference hotel. My name is Sibusiso Handere, and I'll be the chairperson of this session. Firstly, I would like to introduce our guests that are here. In front, starting with Comrade Shirley Brown.
All power!
Followed by Comrade Advocate Mashulu.
Maibuye! Maibuye! Amandla!
Away to!
Viva Comrade Msholozi, viva!
Viva!
Then followed by Comrade Gauteng Shezi.
Amandla!
Away to! Amandla!
Balega mthengisi balega!
Balega!
Balega mthengisi balega!
Balega!
All power!
To the people!
President Jacob Zuma, viva!
Viva!
Then followed by Comrade from the Social Justice Forum, who is a spokesperson, Comrade Mali Fukeng.
We are Zuma!
Zuma is us!
Zuma is us!
We are Zuma!
And then we are having a Comrade Lula Mukwele. Okay. Comrades, Comrade to Anibel Kutam.
Hands of Zuma, arrest declared. Hands of Zuma,
Arrest declared!
of Zuma,
Arrest declared!
Comrades elected newly from the box, from the conference at St. George's, Comrade Ukosas, our SG, Ukosas, Comrade Udebuko Makama.
Hands off, President Zuma, hands off!
Hands off!
Hands off, public protector, hands off!
Hands off!
Run, Trevor Manuel, run! Hands off, Ace Mahashule, hands off!
Hands off!
Buya Msholoza, the Tuli House with Lindile, Buya!
Away to!
We have got a trusting member, Comrade Umada Sambo Udinyigo.
haha ariti haha, Clean Msholozi, cleaner.
Viva!
Next to me is my co-director, Comrade Bazunga Oadami.
We are Zuma! Zuma is us! We are Zuma!
Zuma is us! We are Zuma!
Zuma is us!
We are Zuma!
Comrade, the program is going to be like this. I've done this deliberately. Then there's one speaker that I have not introduced. So never think that maybe I've forgotten him. We are going to have messages of support after he has presented our press statement. So we are going to now allow our main speaker, who's going to present our press statement, Comrade Carl Niels, who is a member of MK.
Viva ANC, viva! On to SS Military Veterans Association, viva!
Viva!
Msholozi is us and we are Msholozi.
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 Amandla!
Awethu!
Comrade Master of Ceremonies, members of the media who are present here, and we really want to thank you for having come. But especially and most importantly, welcome to the large number of our fellow comrades who have gathered here. You came here with only 2 days' notice. And this is an indication of the anger and also the commitment of our comrades in their support for Nkamalala. Comrades, we decided this cannot just be a press conference. This must be a mass press conference. You see, comrades, we have had many mass meetings, but now we're having a mass press conference. Because the press statement that I'm going to read out is not the voice of 1 or 2 people, but it is the message of the masses. And that is why at this press conference, the most important people present are you, our fellow comrades, our members of ANC branches, the people to whom this country belongs and whom Msholozi has served his whole life. I will now proceed to read the media statement by the Gauteng RET President Zuma Support Group. Zuma arrest warrant, a travesty of justice. Last week, Tuesday, the 4th of February 2020, our country stood witness to a travesty of justice. The courtroom in the High Court of Pietermaritzburg, where the lawyers of President Zuma presented a medical certificate to explain his inability to attend the court hearing due to his illness, was turned into a scene of political one-upmanship. Rather than the even-handed execution of justice, Justice Dia issued an arrest warrant for President Jacob Zuma for execution on the 6th of May, the date set down for the continuation of President Zuma's pre-trial, together with a co-accused from the French multinational company Thales. With this unfortunate ruling, Judge Pillay plunged our judiciary straight into the political arena and shredded any hopes of President Zuma, who has been subjected to vicious vilification in the court of public opinion, receiving a free and fair trial. The trial of President Zuma, which is now more than 24 years in the making, has right from the beginning been marred by political meddling. Who can forget the infamous secret press briefing by the then head of the NPA, Advocate Bulelani Nguka, setting the scene for a travesty of justice of Shakespearean proportions, when he whispered into the ears of susceptible journalists unsubstantiated rumors of so-called prima facie evidence against President Zuma. Nor can we forget the telephone conversations of the head of the Scorpions, Leonard McCarthy, with Nguka and other political players just before the ANC's national conference in Limpopo in 2007 about when would be the politically most damaging time for President Zuma to be charged. The National Prosecuting Authority was never interested in the application of justice. Instead, it allowed itself to be abused and to become the attack dog of certain corrupt political leaders and their white monopoly capital funders. It is proven beyond any doubt how the NPA has been repurposed for political score settling. The manner in which Advocate Billy Downer and his NPA legal team, again on Tuesday, the 4th of February, blatantly and shamelessly played politics in questioning President Zuma's illness, was just a continuation of the very same travesty of justice that they have been engaged in right from the very beginning of these 2.5 decades of persecution of President Zuma. No one in South Africa can any longer deny that this trial has been characterized by unwarranted meddling of the most blatant political nature into the prosecutorial domain at the behest of key political protagonists. Justice Pillay, with her reckless decision to issue a warrant of arrest for President Zuma, sadly made common cause with the very dangerous political game of the NPA. She lifted the veil of Lady Justice and blighted the reputation of judiciary, who have been tainted all along and now became even more compromised by the already muddied reputation of the NPA. In doing so, Pillay called into question the adherence of the judiciary to its sacred constitutional mandate of independence. She has laid bare for all to see that the doctrine of separation of powers in the instance of this trial of President Zuma is a farce and fiction, a shriveled up and dying fig leaf, failing to cover the shamelessness of their politically biased nakedness. Judge Pillay has branded President Zuma a criminal and fugitive of justice. This despite President Zuma's conscientious and full attendance of every court hearing related to his case for more than 15 years. This while his number 2 accused, Thales, a foreign company owned by white imperialists, only every time sent their white legal team. However, not once was there ever as much as a whisper of complaint from the NPA. Nor did the judge involved in the dragged-out case ever complain or considered the possibility of issuing a warning, not even to speak of a warrant of arrest. Judge Pillay is impervious to the far-reaching consequences of her decision. She has literally dragged our country into a constitutional crisis and placed the rule of law at risk. In the first instance, as we have already stated, the President Zuma trial is a product of blatant politicking. The corruption charges against President Zuma has over the years demonstrated how our courts have sadly and increasingly descended into the political arena. The entire spectacle of President Jacob Zuma's persecution has gone way beyond the scope of the jurisdiction of our courts. into a treacherous political swamp. And the shameful and glaring difference in the terrible treatment that President Zuma is receiving at the hands of the legal system in South Africa, as compared to the free ride that apartheid criminals such as F.W. de Klerk, Wouter Basson, and Adrian Vlok are given. This inequality and travesty of justice is there for all of us as a nation to see, and the injustice of it screams to the heavens. Clearly, there is no hope of justice for a black liberation hero, while white privilege and impunity on a grand apartheid-like scale continues to prevail even 26 years after the attainment of our democracy. This is intolerable and shameful. When F.W. de Klerk had a health scare in 2013 and had to undergo an operation for a pacemaker to be implanted, the then national spokesperson of the ANC, Jackson Tembo, sent him a warm public message of support, wishing him a speedy recovery. Now that President Zuma is ill, he is vilified. And Pule Mabe, the current national spokesperson of the ANC, issued a statement with the deeply hurtful words, and I quote, "If it is true that former President Zuma is ill," close quote. Suddenly, in the case of President Zuma, the onus to prove that he is ill is placed on him, while in the case of de Klerk, his bona fides were fully accepted. The contrast could not be clearer, and it is utterly shameful. Tomorrow, the white apartheid criminal F.W. de Klerk will walk the red carpet at Parliament and be given VVIP treatment at the State of the Nation address, while a black liberation hero, in the person of President Zuma, is humiliated, vilified, issued with a warrant of arrest, and declared a fugitive of justice. Our liberation movement, the ANC, and our democratic government should collectively hang their heads in shame. We ask ourselves, why does our democratic government, led by our beloved African National Congress, continue to defend and promote white privilege at the terrible cost of black and especially African South Africans? History has no blank pages. It records that President Jacob Zuma is a freedom fighter who joined the ANC at the young age of 16 and who was incarcerated for 10 years on Robben Island as a political prisoner because he was fighting for freedom and justice. When he was eventually released, he spent more than 3 decades in exile as a member of Umkhonto we Sizwe, leading the armed assault on apartheid and its racist system. How deeply sad, but also ironic, that after 26 years after the attainment of our democracy, President Zuma, who fought so hard against apartheid, is humiliated. And we must watch aghast as this abhorrent system is resuscitated for some people's selfish political objectives and for maintaining the control of powerful white monopoly companies over our economy. We are inspired by the words of the great revolutionary and internationalist Comrade Ernesto Che Guevara, who said, if you tremble with indignation at every injustice, then you are a comrade of mine. Today we are gathered here in this big gathering as members of the African National Congress and of civil society, acting in defense of justice and our hard-fought democracy, and the noble constitution of the Republic of South Africa. Our presence here says unequivocally that we won't stand by and watch injustice and the continuation of apartheid-like travesties to be carried out in our name. Let it be known that the continuing descent by the judiciary into the political arena is raising the indignation of many organizations that love justice and are committed to fairness. And this certainly includes us, as we are present here and way beyond the presence of the numbers in this hall, as proud members of the African National Congress. All of us will continue to mobilize civil society for a free, fully liberated, and just South Africa. Our political formations and opposition parties, as it has been the case with the Democratic Alliance, have used and abused our courts to undermine the separation of powers. But ultimately, it is tragically a judicial decision, such as that of Judge Pillay, that lends credence to such dangerous games and the blatant abuse of our legal system. This decision is tantamount to political abuse, further pressurizing the judiciary to meddle with the executive authority and thus to further erode the boundaries of the separation of powers. This political persecution of President Zuma by the Pietermaritzburg High Court has unwittingly also exposed for all of us to see what is actually the routine treatment of black accused people by the South African judicial system. It is clear to us that we are now witnessing is the real state and judicial capture by anti-black, especially anti-African, powerful white monopoly capital forces who will stop at absolutely nothing in order to continue to secure their centuries-long control over our wealth and our land and the commanding heights of our economy. Sadly, they have found allies in the black comprador capitalists who front for them, and some compromised sell-out politicians, some even within our own beloved African National Congress, who do their dirty bidding for them. South Africa was subjected to grand-scale state capture since the earliest days of colonialism. And we continue to be captured by the likes of the Ruperts, the Oppenheimers, the Christo Wieses, the Stephen Kosseffs, the Brian Joffes, the Koos Beckers, the Stellenbosch Mafia, and their companies Anglo-American, Bidvest, Nationale Pers, Investec, the big banks and insurance companies, etc., etc. We do not need to provide a comprehensive list. They and their stranglehold grip on our economy are well known and glaringly visible for all and everyone who want to see the truth. These are the real state capturers And we ask ourselves why they are not appearing. We ask ourselves why they are not appearing in front of Judge Zondo at the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture.
Yeah.
The Zondo Commission is in danger of becoming a diversion from and cover up for exposing those who are the real state capturers and white monopoly owners of our South African economy. When President Zuma commissioned the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture, he warned of the danger of this happening. And we believe his clear stance on this critical issue is part of the reason why he is so viciously persecuted. It is our belief that President Zuma's persecution is also linked to his efforts to implement radical economic transformation.
Yes.
And the central role that he played in pushing for BRICS to become a critical counterbalance and viable alternative for economic development and to challenge the domination power of the dollar. We furthermore believe that there's a direct link between the persecution of President Zuma and the awful reluctance and dragging of feet to fully and with speed implement the pro-radical economic transformation resolutions of the 54th National Conference of the ANC. The same power dynamics and powerful interest groups with as the common denominator white monopoly capital and their fronting agents are involved. Therefore, our clarion call for justice for President Zuma will always go hand in hand with our insistence that white privilege and preferential treatment and white economic domination and control of our economy must come to an end.
Yes.
President Zuma and the terrible racist persecution that he suffers as a black African South African is the personification of that struggle for full liberation and black dignity, economic justice, and an end to racism and continuing of apartheid practices. As such, Msholozi is us, and we are Msholozi. In our assessment, we must agree with the cleric Bishop Ramalain when he asserts, if ever anybody claimed a long walk to freedom, Msholozi, the warrior, Nkamalala, the fighter, knows a much longer walk to freedom. The only ANC president that made whites to march and call for his removal. The time for just complaining and talking about these travesties of injustice and exploitation that Msholozi and black South Africans in general continue to be subjected to is over. Enough is enough.
Yes.
The time for action has arrived.
Yes. Mandla.
The organizations and progressive South Africans, among others, represented at this press conference include the Umkhonto we Sizwe Military Veterans Association, the ANC Youth League in Gauteng, the Congress of South African Students, the Social Justice Forum, and most importantly, rank and file members of our ANC branches and our tripartite alliance partners. Mostly, we are here as loyal members of our liberation movement, the ANC. Our program of action is not confrontational, but aimed to engage, to raise our concerns, and to open up a frank and unapologetic engagement with the leadership of our organization, the African National Congress, as the leader of society. It goes without saying that this program of action will in essence also be an expression of solidarity with President Jacob Zuma, as the personification of the majority of black, especially African South Africans, who continue to be oppressed and exploited for no other reason but that we are black. Our call to action and engagement will, among other activities, include a mass welcoming back of President Zuma to South Africa at OR Tambo International Airport on the day that he returns back from overseas, where he is currently undergoing medical treatment. I want to pause here for a moment, comrades. I've been informed that our National Parliament, on the official Twitter account, has announced that Msholozi will attend the opening of Parliament tomorrow. Wait. Let us not get excited before I finished what I wanted to say now. At this stage, there is absolutely no information from us, and especially from the lawyers of Msholozi, and I've spoken to them just now, that he will attend. We fear that that announcement may be fake news in order to try and cause aspersions on whether Msholozi is really ill. So let us be careful with the propaganda games that may be played. We will find out what the exact facts are. But at this stage, I want to express the sincere hope that our national parliament has not made itself guilty of distributing fake news in order to damage President Zuma.
Yes.
We sincerely hope that is not the case. I've requested the attorneys of President Zuma to investigate this matter, and later today they will issue a comprehensive and clarifying statement. Now, comrades, let me return to our press statement. I'm now going to engage about our call for action and engagement, which, among other activities, will include the following. In the first week of May, we will see 3 consecutive days of rolling mass action. Among other activities, these will include a march to the head office of the ANC, Luthuli House, and we will, in that march, present a memorandum of our concerns and demands to our leaders. This march will take place on Monday, the 4th of May, 2020. It must be emphasized that this will not be a march against the ANC, but to the ANC. I want to repeat that. It is not a march against the ANC, but to the ANC.
Yes.
In order to constructively engage with the leadership of our movement about our concerns regarding the persecution and the general treatment of President Zuma and the lack of implementation of the economic transformation resolutions of the 54th National Conference of the ANC. Luthuli House is our home. And we will march to Luthuli House in order to raise our concerns and to demand the just and fair treatment of President Zuma as a courageous liberation leader and fellow ANC veteran in good standing. The next day, that will be the 5th of May 2020, we will proceed with a march to the head office of the National Prosecuting Authority. And that march will be in order to register our outrage at the manner in which they are using the prosecution of President Zuma for political meddling and subversion. On the third day, and this is going to be the big third, which is the 6th of May, when President Zuma is due to appear again at the Pietermaritzburg High Court, we will gather in our thousands, also all of you who are present here today, comrades, and many, many more, outside the court in solidarity with President Zuma. We will be asking, Wenzeni uZuma? The theme of that gathering of protest and solidarity will be, Msholozi is us, and we are Msholozi. And for purposes of the voice of the people addressing this press conference, say it with me, comrades. Msholozi is us. Say it loud, comrades. And we are Msholozi.
Msholozi is us.
Msholozi is us.
Msholozi is us.
And we are Msholozi.
And we are Msholozi.
Throughout South Africa, the ongoing persecution of President Zuma over decades. It's okay, comrades, we have finished the part where we talk together. Let me conclude this press statement now. Throughout South Africa, the ongoing persecution of President Zuma over decades, and specifically the outrage of the warrant of arrest that had been issued against Nghamalala, has led to deeply felt outrage and discontent. These events that are planned intend to give expression to that upwelling of national anger. But they are by no means the only events that will take place. Many other activities in similar vein will organically arise out of the immense groundswell of support that we are seeing for President Zuma, and anger against the inhumane and unjust persecution that he is subjected to. As part of our call to action, we encourage all of these other activities of protest and outrage. The time has come. The time has come for the multitude of voices of the poor and oppressed to be heard. Justice for President Zuma and for all of us can no longer be postponed. Amandla.
Away too.
Comrades, this is the statement issued by the Gauteng Radical Economic Transformation President Zuma Support Group. This statement carries the voice of each and every one of you here and many millions of people throughout South Africa. We are now distributing to the media copies of the statement. Thank you, Comrade Chair.
Thank you very much, Comrade Carl.
So.
Zuma is us.
We are Zuma.
Zuma is us.
We are Zuma.
We are Zuma.
Zuma is us.
Thank you. Comrades and friends, now is the time where we open for media to ask questions. Strictly, people representing media to ask questions of clarity. Can I note hands? Please ensure that you introduce yourself
Give the mic to
And also, we'll have a roving mic so that at least you can be able to be audible enough. Please introduce yourself and the media house that you're coming from. Thank you very much.
My name is Mbali Tataki from News Dramatic. I just want to find out from you, Carl, you were saying that you believe that this is politicking. Who do you think is behind this, that they want to see the former president back in court? I also want to find out from you, I mean, that announcement has been done by Parliament themselves. How sure are you that the former president won't be attending SOLA tomorrow?
I think the easiest way, comrades, is to answer each question immediately. I'll start with the second part of your question. We are investigating what is going on. I cannot tell you at this stage, but what I can tell you is that our evidence and information is contrary to that tweet. If the situation had changed, we will be informed by the investigation of the attorneys. I do not want to speculate beyond that, except to repeat what I've said just now. I sincerely hope, because I myself had been a member of Parliament for the first term of our democratic Parliament and government, I sincerely hope that whatever happened here, whether there's confusion or error or whatever, that there was no intentional fake news being distributed, because that will mar the image and the integrity of Parliament. What I'm saying and what we as a collective are saying about political meddling is clear in terms of the historical content of 2.5 decades of President Zuma's persecution, first of all. Secondly, the total incongruity of the decision of the judge to issue a warrant of arrest against a 77-year-old statesman, 77-year-old statesman, who for 15 years attended every appearance that he had to make in front of the court and respected the court in every possible way. There is no chance of President Zuma being a flight risk. There is no chance of President Zuma not respecting the courts. He was one of the negotiators of our constitution. He is one of the people that made our constitution possible. Why would he undermine that constitution? But why is it then necessary for Judge Pillay to issue such a warrant of arrest, understanding all these circumstances, not just concentrating on some technical error on the medical certificate, but understanding the whole context? Why is it necessary to issue that warrant of arrest? I'll tell you why. Not for legal purposes, not out of fear that President Zuma will abscond. It's ridiculous to even say it. I even hesitated to say the word. Why would he ever do that? Not out of fear for that, but for political purposes, as a propaganda tool to be used by the white monopoly capital mainstream media, who can then write articles to call him a villain, to call him a potential fugitive of justice, and all around the world say that there's this guillotine of a warrant of arrest hanging over its head. That is political. That is not just. That is not legal. That is simply using that instrument of a warrant of arrest to continue what was going on for the last 2.5 decades, which is the vilification of President Zuma. The purposes of that, those who are involved must explain to us. We have said in our statement what we believe motivate them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any hand? Okay. Number two.
Barbara Curry from News 24. Ms. Nihas, if you believe that Judge Daya Pillay is being unfair, will you make a complaint with the JSC against her?
Well, obviously, our protest action and our responses to what has happened only a couple of days ago will continue to unfold. That may include what you've just suggested. But, and I want to emphasize this has gone way beyond just simply going to lay a complaint. This is now in the public domain. All of us, as we sit here, and many millions of other South Africans, are outraged and insulted by that action. That cannot be resolved simply by laying a complaint. It will be resolved by registering our deeply felt anger and protest in the manner that we have expressed now and in many other ways that will follow from here on. The public domain has been entered on this issue, not by our choice, but by the judge who did so in an open court. We as a public have the right to respond and to protect our fellow comrade. If I can speak, thank you comrades, if I can speak for a moment as a soldier of Umkhonto we Sizwe. Msholozi has been one of the most illustrious commanders of Umkhonto we Sizwe. We highly respect him. He was, until recently, the Commander-in-Chief of the South African Defence Force. We, as soldiers, will not leave a fellow soldier behind on the battlefield.
Away, two.
I believe there are no more questions from the media.
There's one more.
There's one more.
From SABC. I'm just alluding to the statement that you made against Judge Pillay, saying that she's playing into the political arena, and also to the fact that this is a clear target on the former president. Are you saying that some aspects of the judiciary is captured? Are you trying to...
Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh yes, it is. It is. Oh yes.
Thank you, comrades. You know, comrades, we deserve a just, even-handed judiciary. We deserve a judiciary that will observe the separation of powers.
Oh yes.
We deserve a judiciary that will not be used for political purposes.
Oh yes.
That is what our Constitution demands. But what has been happening is the opposite. The judiciary has been used for political machinations. The judiciary for 25 and more years have been used against President Zuma. And I've given the examples in our press statement. What happened with the then head of the NPA, Bulelani Ngcuka. What happened with the head of the Scorpions. And we can go on and on. Political meddling, one instance after the other. Now, comrades, that is a travesty of justice. There's a very interesting article that was written yesterday by a retired judge, Judge Chris Greenberg. He said, look, I do not hold any brief for President Jacob Zuma. But I want to tell you as a learned judge, as someone who is trained in the legal system, there is no ways with this kind of propaganda, with this kind of meddling, with what happened with the separation of the trial of Schabir Shaik and President Zuma, that there's any judge in South Africa that can be unbiased and provide President Zuma with a free and fair trial. That's not what I'm saying, comrades. It is what a retired judge himself is saying. So why do we want to continue with this travesty of justice? Why do we have to drag Msholozi for more than 15 years in and out of court when it is not possible in any way whatsoever for him to ever get a free and fair trial? I'll tell you why, comrades. Only for one reason: political persecution. And that's why I started by saying we deserve a judiciary that will uphold the law, be independent, free and fair. These actions aren't. There is one fundamental cornerstone in our Constitution which states every citizen has the right to be deemed innocent until found guilty by a properly constituted court of law. That right has been trashed for President Zuma. Because in the kangaroo courts of the media, Sunday Times, City Press, Rapport, I can continue, on and on, News 24, President Zuma is already found guilty. That is a constitutional travesty.
Exactly.
We cannot allow him nor our Constitution to be trashed in that way. For the sake of Msholozi, but also for the sake of ourselves. Because, comrades, today it will be President Zuma. Tomorrow it will be us.
Thank you very much. We've got one hand, and that will be the last hand. Please, no more requests.
SABC News. Just out of interest sake, how is the former president doing, and do you guys know what condition he's suffering from?
How is
what is he suffering from?
Thank you. I couldn't hear the question properly, but I understand it now. I would like to refer you to the statement that was made by the Secretary General of the African National Congress, Comrade H. Magashule, yesterday, where he said that he had visited President Zuma several times during this period of ill health. And he can confirm that the president is not well. The fact that the president is not well is also supported by the fact that he had not attended the last National Executive Committee meetings of the African National Congress, nor the ANC NEC Lekgotla that was held 2 weeks ago. Now, in my experience, President Zuma is a diligent attender of all those meetings. In fact, he will travel from anywhere in the world to come back to attend those meetings, because that is the nature of the man. He's loyal, he serves, and he sees the ANC not just as his organization, but his family. So for him not to be present is an indication that he's not well. I don't think it is for me or for any one of us here to go into detail about President Zuma's health. Except to say that President Zuma is clearly not well, and that we must accept his bona fides in this regard. I come back to the statement that I read. It cannot be that when President, I'm even hesitating to call him President, but okay, F.W. de Klerk, in 2013 was not well, that he got a message of support from the then spokesperson of the ANC, Jackson Temple, and that his bona fides were totally accepted. No one said, are we sure that the man is ill? He must prove that he's ill. We just simply say, we accept you ill, we wish you well. Now, why can't we at least show that little bit
Respect.
of common courtesy also to someone who's done so much more for this country, who's a liberation fighter, who's a commander of MK? Can't we show him that courtesy of accepting his word when he says, my comrades, I'm sorry, I'm ill. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and I hope I have not maybe stopped anybody from asking a question, especially from the media, because our understanding is that we invited you to ask as many questions as you can and ensure that you empower yourself so that as you go out and write, you write correctly what you have stated here. We are going to now move on to the messages of support. Amongst the messages of support, we are going to call on Comrade SG from COSAS, Comrade Otebo from Makafani.
President Zuma, viva! President Zuma, run his flag, run! Run his flag, run! Thank you, Program Director. First, I want to clarify something. I'm still going to the Congress again, and we are going to cover them. Comrades, it was not fashionable when COSAS pronounced President Zuma prior to one Congress. Even today, we'll stand behind President Zuma. We are shocked that a mass murder who let our people in Bipato, they honored him. You will find former President Mbeki want to discuss democracy with the clerk. Then we must respect them. They started with Mama Winnie Mandela. Now it's President Zuma. After President Zuma is Mahashule. Comrades, we are members of the ANC. They have turned ANC into a stock fair. They buy delegates. The ANC has been sold. NASDAQ resolution spoke about free education. President Zuma pronounced free education. But today, students are still paying fees. Then you must respect them. Comrades, President Zuma is one of our own. The ANC that we know respect its members. President Zuma is one of them. But, Comrade Khan, you find the members of Umkhonto weSizwe, that other side of Umkhonto weSizwe, MK Council, supporting capital, more than their conscience. They went to exile to defend this country. But today, because of they're receiving money, Commander Pruenyanda is one of them. Some of them, they're in the NDC and the ANC. They're part of SA. But today, they're quiet about that. They were living Gauteng, we know them. We know them, and they know that we know them. They want to ask anything. We are not afraid of them. We respect them because they belong to the ANC. ANC taught us respect. But we don't respect elders, we don't respect themselves. You find Big Vest. They're in office of giving us toilet paper, bit vest. There's something wrong. If Comrade Stompy can own a company, they'll say Comrade Stompy is corrupt. But why Bidvest not corrupt? Then they booked comrades of the ANC hotels, Bidvest, in the Congress of the ANC. Today we are still waiting at an investigation from Comrade Zweli, why Bidvest booked delegates of the ANC hotels. Comrades, you can't try to kill. They don't want youth league. They don't want COSAs. Because of they've stolen enough, now they're stealing for their dogs. We are worried. We are worried that when our members go to university, and it's not a private book, we have students who are selling their bodies because of NAFSA's not doing anything for them. Then President Zuma pronounced free education. They spoke nonsense about Zuma. Comrades, we feel as if in South Africa we are adopted by white people. Why this country belongs to us. They tend to forget that they came through the sea. Maybe we must remind them that they must go back. Then you find those sons of EFF. When President Zuma expelled Pravin, they chanted as if they are revolutionists. They stole colors of SACP, red SACP. Not this nonsense that we are seeing of Blake's money. Red SACP. Red SACP. Then today, because of the agreement with the current president is no longer working. They are saying they want to disrupt SONA because Jamnanas is still there. We want to ask them, did not agree that president must give them money because they work through money as those ones. We know Julius. We know Julius. He's our boy. We made him. And we must ask those lawyers before next right conference, who paid them money? Since from when ANC has been taken to court, those judges, comrades, we must ask ourselves, why have you seen President of Women's League not being deployed in Parliament? Why have you seen that, comrades? Why have you seen that? Then, when we speak as young people, they threaten us. We don't care. We grow up within the ANC. And we did not join ANC because of money. We joined ANC because we understand poverty. We live poverty. Young people, they are suffering. And to show that there is something wrong about them, their kids are not doing door to door. Their kids are not members of the ANC. Because of they speak with English, they think that we are afraid of them. Comrades, on the 6th of May, we are going to Pietermaritzburg. And we want to lobby those clever blacks that if they are not aware, their country is going. And Women's League, I've never had Women's League release a statement protecting a public protector. Maybe they want her to be raped or killed. Then they'll protect her. Because of public protector is fighting white forces. Public protector must leave. Then you find the ANC say Supra is wrong once he protect public protector. Women's League must wake up. They must smell the tea. We know Women's League. That is revolutionarist. They must unite. We are not asking them or telling them. They must unite and save the ANC. Kosatu, they are being bought in those ones. Lucy, we know her. Politics of stomach. I don't want to speak about Blake. Blake, she's a former member of IFP. What do you expect? We don't expect nothing from him. Thank you very much. Mata. Bua, Kostas, bua.
Comrades, we are moving to our next speaker. Mata. Comrades, we are moving to our second message of support, which will be delivered by Comrade Umalifu.
Social justice.
From Social Justice Forum. Asiba bemekabane isikhathi sesishaya.
The mics, yes. Stand here, just stand here.
Mata. Ripilele msholozi, ripilele. Sipilele msholozi, sipilele. Imanjalo msholozi, imanjalo. Qina msholozi, qina. Qina msholozi, qina. Over to you, comrade.
We are Zuma.
Zuma is us.
Zuma is us.
We are Zuma.
Comrades, we are here as People's Social Justice Forum to can say we know that with serious concern that the judiciary is being captured. Yes. And we are therefore saying we demand that the judge that has issued the warrant of arrest against Msholozi must recuse herself. Yes. Because we are fully aware that she issued the warrant of arrest on the basis that she is having also a political hatred against Msholozi. Also on the basis that she is close to the people who are having political and personal hatred against Msholozi. And we also noted with serious concern that the Ministry of Health is silent about the diverging of Jacob Zuma's privacy and confidentiality. And because even if you are a criminal, the minute you enter the hospital, your status changes to be a patient. And the minute you are a patient, you are protected by the Health Act, and the Patient's Right Charter, and battlefield principles. But in this case, the sick note of Mr. Comrade Jacob Zuma has been flying all over the media, and the Ministry of Health is quiet and silent about that. So we want to know from the Ministry of Health, what are they doing or what are they saying about the sick note of President Jacob Zuma that is flying so high in the social media? And we are saying, comrades, as People's Social Justice Forum, we are sending the clear message to the white monopoly capital that we are leaving our fingerprints here at Boysen's Hotel to can say, you scratch Msholozi, you scratch the country. You scratch the country, you scratch Msholozi. Amanda!
Thank you very much. We are going to call on the RT champion, who Comrade Ungosenja Ushis.
Happy Amaso, Happy Amakerela, Obano Kalakase, Happy Amaso,
Long live President Jacob Zuma, long live. Long live RET Force Jacob Zuma, long live. Long live father of free tertiary education to the children of the working class, long live. Long live President Jacob Zuma, owasinikeza ama-ARVs bulawa indlukazi, long live. Long live Father President Jacob Zuma, owakhanda i-BRICS ukuze sibalekele i-World Bank, long live. Long live the enemy of white monopoly capital, long live. Amandla. Now, greetings, Makaban. Accept our revolutionary greetings from RET champion. I am coming from the land of KwaZulu-Natal, Makaban. The land so rich in the history of wars of resistance against the white invaders who came in our country in 1652 to take our land, to abuse our forefathers, to rape our grandmothers, and still today their daughters and their greatest sons, they are enjoying the loot that they took from our grandparents. Comrades, as we stand here today, we are coming to say we note this gathering of ANC branches, this gathering of ANC leads, this gathering of the owners of the biggest liberation movement in the country and in the rest of the world. Comrades, we cannot remain silent anymore. And as we come here today, we must begin to ask fundamental questions. That what is it that we want to achieve? What brings us here? What exactly do we mean when we say we support Msholozi? What do we mean when we say Msholozi is us and we are Msholozi? Comrade, I'm reminded of some of the comrades. We supported one comrade, I think it's Comrade Tony, whom we supported until he was carried into the prison. What are we saying about this case against Msholozi, that we understand it to be a political tool to vilify Msholozi? Are we really going to hand over Msholozi to a corrupt, captured judiciary?
No ways, ever.
Comrades, we must be resolute. What exactly are we doing? What exactly are we doing? Are we going to remain politically relevant for the friends of white monopoly capital and not question the hardest questions that we must ask? You see, comrades, we were quiet when they touched Zandile Kumete in KZN. We were quiet when they touched Comrade Supra in the Northwest. We are still quiet. They are vilifying a powerful woman in the name of Comrade Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane. Comrade, what exactly is our mission? Comrades, the blood of Abbas Kukune, the kings who led our forebears, will ask us, what have we achieved in our generation? We must safeguard this revolution against the enemy, which is the white monopoly capital. But we must also safeguard this revolution against black people who pose as our leaders, whilst rendering us, delivering us to the enemy. You see, comrades, the history of Izimpimpi is not a new thing. There are known white monopoly capitalist agents who existed even during the days of King Dinizulu, who delivered people who were fighting for the land into the hands of white monopoly capital until he was captured and arrested at St. Helena. What is our mission today? Comrade Cunninghouse, we thank you for a wonderful, well-captured aspirations of us as we've gathered here. But we must also begin to say, this judiciary, even though we respect the independence of judiciary, but the judiciary is a representation of the masses of our people. This judiciary must represent our aspirations of a free and just society. If the judges that are supposed to respect the same constitution are doing otherwise, we shall remove them. And as RET champion, we are making this clarion call to every man and woman in South Africa, to every teacher, to every nurse, to every lawyer. Where are the lawyers of the caliber of Griffiths and Victoria Mqenge? How can you remain quiet when the three-fingered accused of building a rock unit are acquitted? Not in the court system, but by someone whom we suspect that she was placed there to do favors for friends who are looting this country. We must be able to garner support from the black revolutionary lawyers to say, how are we going to challenge the rock units who are walking free today? How are we going to respond to a question of children unarmed in the Eastern Cape who were massacred under a direct command of F.W. de Klerk? We must begin to ask ourselves that who is going to pay for the atrocities of apartheid that the United Nations have declared it as inhumane and something that is against the social justice? Somebody must pay. Who is going to pay for the land that was captured by Jan van Riebeeck, at whose command Jan van Riebeeck came here? Did he not come at the command of England and the Queen? We must begin to ask these questions. And as we are here, we must give answers to those questions. Are we going to hand over President Jacob Zuma to be arrested simply because of the judge who declared a warrant of arrest in Pietermaritzburg? Comrades, is it not the time that we march and occupy union buildings? If the people in union buildings that we have sent there cannot, in their consciousness, find it logical to pay for the fees of the former president of this country who is vilified in the court system, whereas they paid for voter person, umthakathi who murdered our people. Comrades, as we stand here as RET champion, we are joining this struggle. In fact, we are leading this struggle, and we have a stern warning to the leaders of ANC, our ANC. We are saying to the leaders of ANC in KwaZulu-Natal, in Limpopo, in Mpumalanga, and elsewhere, when we call you as members of African National Congress and say, leaders, we see an injustice against President Jacob Zuma, don't come to manage us. Don't come to tell us things are going to be right when you know for sure that this justice is against President Zuma. If you cannot lead this revolution, if you cannot lead the implementation of NASREC resolutions, we are going to take over. If you are not going to lead a march and a demand to nationalize the South African Reserve Bank so that the South African masses who are unemployed can benefit from that Reserve Bank, we are going to lead that revolution. We love our ANC. We respect our ANC. We want the ANC to continue to lead all formations. But if leaders are captured, if leaders are accepting monies as alleged in CR17 bank statements, we are going to take over the union buildings and we are going to remove all corrupt leaders. Among them, hands off, public protector, hands off. Hands off. off Zandile Kumete, hands off. Hands off RET forces, hands off. Hands off Tutumieni, hands off. Hands off President Jacob Zuma, hands off. Long live President Jacob Zuma, long live.
Thank you very much. Speedily, can I call on the podium Andile Mutam?
Haibuye Africa, Haibuye Africa, Haibuye Africa, Haibuye Africa,
Long live, Sholas, long live.
Comrade Daniel.
We are here, comrades, to, you know, comrades, na 2016 Blackfest Landfest saw the danger our country was in. 2016, we said hands off President Zuma. 2016, because we saw how in Brazil, a comrade who was with Comrade Msholozi in BRICS was removed to break down BRICS, and they were coming to South Africa. President Zuma says, let us unite on radical economic transformation. And the comrades, that's what unite us. Ronald Blackfest, Landfest, Lilo Nabatuba ANC, Rikopanyuake, RET, Yanda Kemsholozi. And we must make this appeal to all revolutionary forces, all progressive people. Let us unite on RET. And I give a clue whole comrade about was slow, because also what is RET? We're not saying it. Zuma is as we are Zuma. Zuma is under attack for RET, meaning we are under attack. Yes. RET is very simple, comrade. President Zuma said in 2017, a State of the Nation address, land expropriation without compensation. Reserve Bank must be nationalized. Free education. And Kenya have more minimum wage to address the Marikana problem. The ANC adopted that program. But comrades, we must defend RET, because what is happening in Parliament on land expropriation without compensation, it is a distortion of even the resolutions of the ANC. Because there's 1 billion rand that I can certify. Comrades, that I can certify. The problem we have is RET against Stellenbosch. RET is represented by President Zuma. Stellenbosch is Rupert and the president of the country today. The public protector has found, that the president of the country, Cyril Ramaphosa, was given public protector at more than 500 million towards the Nazareth conference. The leaks have come out, the emails that shows that in fact it is R1 billion white monopoly capital has given to Ramaphosa to buy the ANC conference to undermine the program of radical economic transformation. What today load shedding it again. The people who gave that R1 billion want ESCOM to be sold. That's why they're destroying ESCOM and they're hitting us with load shedding. So load shedding, God, comrade, to finish load shedding. It is back today. It is not because it's a mistake, comrade. They are selling SAA. They've already sold some of the aeroplanes. The people who gave your president money are the ones who are buying these assets of the state, and you think that the judiciary itself is not implicated, Zuma will not get a free trial. And we must be clear, comrades, drop the charges against Zuma. Drop the charges against Zuma, because you have dropped the charges against the SARS rogue unit. But to balika ra khoto, comrades. But to bane baita treasonous things, their charges are being withdrawn. When there is solid evidence, 6 independent investigations have shown that these people are involved in criminal activities, but their charges are being withdrawn, but the charges against President Zuma still stand. So we must say very clearly, hands off Zuma, arrest de Klerk, drop the charges, and let me conclude by telling you another file. Comrades, let me conclude by telling you, you see, comrades, they have stopped the aeroplanes, the line to KwaZulu-Natal, to Durban. It is not just the aeroplanes, comrades, they also stopped with Translugs. They are attacking KwaZulu-Natal as a province because they believe KwaZulu-Natal is supporting President Zuma. They are doing what apartheid used to do. They are stopping people from moving and information from flowing, so that you must not organize well to defend Umsholozi. So these things are hoary, comrade. The aeroplanes no longer go to Durban. It is not because they're trying to save SAA. It is because they want to undermine radical economic transformation. We are Msholozi. We are Msholozi. Hands off Zuma, arrest de Klerk. Hands off Zuma, arrest de Klerk. Hands off Zuma, arrest de Klerk. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Comrades, we are going to call on our last message of support. Comrade Shelley Brown. Commander le.
Amandla! Amandla! All power!
To the people.
All power!
To the people.
Viva Gauteng Msholozi Zuma Viva!
Viva!
Siphilele Msholozi siphilele!
Siphilele!
Amandla! Comrades, ngisame kule ndawo. Ngiyothi qapqap laba gijime khona angeke ngibe mude ngizoba nje mfishane. Kodwa engifuna ukuyisho ukuthi ngime la as a member ye-RET, Radical Economic Transformation. La ngime njengesotsha elaziyo ukuthi lanwelani, ukuthi ngaphumelani ngaya emazweni, ukuthi kahle kahle what was it all about, angakayikhohlwa. Nganginwela inkululeko yabantu in totality, not half. Comrades, as long as singaka be emancipated economically, we are not emancipated. People of South Africa must know ukuthi asikakakhululeki uma umhlaba wabantu ungakabuyi ezandleni zabantu. Abantu kumele bazi ukuthi uma umnotho wasemzansi ungakahlukaniswa equally so to each and everyone, we are not emancipated. Comrades, we mustn't forget what we were fighting for. Comrades, we mustn't be bluffed by our brown envelopes. Lawa athengisa i-ANC eNasrec. La abantu babelala emahotela amabayibayi bagijima nezikhwama zibasinda sibabhekile econferencing. Comrades, ANC i-ANC yanwela ukukhulula isizwe sabantu abamnyama la eMzansi. Umuntu omnyama asalala emkhukhwini, umuntu omnyama asalala ngadlanga, umuntu omnyama asabhadala i-school fees esikolweni, aqoshwe esikolweni anganikezwa i-report ukuthi akabhadalanga i-school fees. This is not a freedom ebesilwela. Manje isukile. Manje we now fighting for our total emancipation. As long as umnotho usesezandleni, the white monopoly capital will never rest. As long as our movement takes the instructions from Stellenbosch, we are not going to rest. And yet, they call the branches of the African National Congress. You decide. Our branches must decide. Ukuthi kahle kahle salwelani. Salwela inkululeko kodwa sisahlupheka namhlanje. Namhlanje sinabantu bayasirepresenta in parliament. Sayicela Tswatsa, those people were elected by the branches. Ukuthi bahambise izwi le-African National Congress. Ukuthi sithini thina i-African National Congress ebantwini basekhaya. Comrades, we took our resolutions. Ku 54th conference in Nasrec. Our resolutions till today, we want those resolutions to be implemented. We want them to be implemented as they are, without any sugar coating. We want those resolutions to be implemented. Mabasize now, today, umshonozi uyahlaselwa. Hlaselwa left, right, and center. Asizwe umfu from the African National Congress. Siyezwa imibhedo ekhamkayo iqhamuke lapha konke kubaphule. Uphule must stop doing what he's doing. Must tell us ukuthi kahle kahle whom does he serve. Makasitshele ukuthi yini inkinga yakhe. Na uDihlekwa yegula. uDihlekwa nikezwa ama-flowers. Wakhuluma ubani konje lo separlament. Umthengisi wakhuluma washo ukuthi no uDihlekwa makaphole kwathini ningathangani. Why bangakwazi namhlanje ukuthi wherever you are, Commander in Chief, wherever you are, Jacob Zuma, Paula Nyamalala, sinawe ANC. Why kathi babeyela nokuthi sigqoke ikipa. Kanti leyo kwakuyisign lokuthi umshonozi. Now he has turned to be a sacrificial lamb. Ngoba namhlanje sikhuluma ngokuthi nayi i-Eskom. I-Eskom imahlakahlaka inje. But there were monies ezaphuma to rescue i-Eskom. Where's the 33 billion from China? Where's the 10 billion from Saudi Arabia? Iphi leyo mali ngoba i-Eskom ngoba kudala yarescue. I rescue i-Eskom because certain people must take over i-Eskom. Abantu abafande CR17 abafande CR17 Nasrec. Namhlanje they must take over. They must take over i-Eskom. Andiboni ukuthi kena ke sidlalwa i-dirty game. Isikhathi seJamaria.
siphelile. Isikhathi sokukhuluma kakhulu kuma group chats it's over. Now we want action. Action now, not later than now. Amandla, all power
to the people. Amanda.
Magolewe matula mufan, Yohawe makawe, Yohawe matula mufan, Yohawe makawe, Yohawe matula mufan, Magolewe makawe, Magolewe matula mufan, Yohawe makawe, Yohawe matula mufan, Yohawe makawe, Yohawe Magolewe makawe, Magolewe matula mufan, Magolewe makawe, Magolewe matula mufan, Yohawe makawe, Yohawe matula mufan, Yohawe makawe, Yohawe matula mufan, Magolewe makawe, Magolewe matula mufan, Yohawe
Amanda. Amanda. Siphilele msholo siphilele. Phila njalo msholozi phila njalo. Qina msholozi njengesoja qina. Qina msholozi social umkhonto qina. Qina msholozi commander in chief qina. Comrades, right now we are going towards the last item. And that last item will need all elected comrades who are in the RET task team to come forward for all of you to know who is here today. Can I call on all comrades abakhethiwe ukuthi bazolida ku task team to come forward? While I'm still waiting for them, let me thank all our comrades, especially comrades, traditional healers who came all the way from Free State. Nababo mama bala. All the way from Free State. They came here because they believe in the cause, Esigion. And we also want to thank all our comrades in different regions, different provinces, to be here and assist in ensuring this press conference is a success. Comrades, there are comrades that I can see. Aba may magaban.
Yes.
Baba, comrade Maduma Ngbola. Comrade Opa. Oh, okay. Now comrade Opa.
Siyawufuna umhlaba wethu, isikhathi siphelile, woza lito. Siyawufuna umhlaba wethu, siyawufuna umhlaba wethu.